My name's Amata, and in this Red Gamer Tech video I am here with the tech news from the last 24 or so hours. Just a quick FYI before we get started. However, unfortunately I'm coming down with something. I don't know if it's what Paul had or something else entirely. Hopefully it's not what he had, because he was pretty destroyed, to be honest with you. However, unfortunately, not my usual sparkling self, so do forgive me if my voice is a bit croaky, because unfortunately it is. However, what I have for you today, well, we've got a couple of Apple pieces, nothing too major, but still have some slightly disconcerting news regarding the Apple HomePod smart speakers. We also have Apple confirming that they are on the case of fixing a Telugu character bug, and we also have some rumours for the Samsung Galaxy S9 price tag. Obviously, rumours are abound regarding this particular smartphone, including obviously specs and all that sort of stuff, but according to the inside mobile industry sources of Tech Radar, we're going to be seeing a slightly lower price than we have previously heard in prior reports. According to their sources, who they claim are very trustworthy, of course it's their sources, not mine, so obviously I can't vouch for them either way. However, this is what they've said, and according to those very same sources, it is going to cost £739. So obviously this is roughly £50 cheaper than previously heard. If you do keep your ear to the ground when it comes to Samsung news, this might be like, ooh, bit of sort of positive news for a change. And here's what the inside source had to say. They said, quote, expect the S9 to be priced roughly £50 cheaper than what everybody is saying. A £100 price hike from the S8 is no longer on the cards and is looking much more like a £50 increase instead. So obviously, if you're thinking of buying this outright instead of getting on contract or whatever, this is always good news. A price increase is to be expected, unfortunately. So, you know, as minimal as that can be is obviously good news. However, do keep in mind that not only is this a rumour, and obviously the previous leaks were rumours as well, but just keep all the rumours, you know, in your big old pile of salt as normal. However, the other thing you should keep in mind is that this is only for the standard handset, excuse me. Unfortunately, they didn't have anything to say regarding the S9 Plus, but if you think about previous generations and the price gap between the usual sort of vanilla version and the Plus version, we're probably looking at around £830 up front for the S9 Plus. So, again, do take it with a pinch of salt and all that, but not too outside of the realms of possibility. That out of the way, let's move on to a couple of smallish pieces of Apple news. The first is, again, regarding the HomePod, smart speakers. Now, these have been doing the rounds in reviews, and while they have been doing pretty well, there's also been a couple of reviews that have mentioned something a little concerning for anyone who likes to have, say, a wood desk or whatever it happens to be. As a review from a website by the name of Pocketlint basically said that the HomePod left a piece of treated wood furniture with a white discoloured ring, and this very same ring was also reported by a website by the name of Wirecutter, and again it was the same issue as Pocketlint as well. It does seem to be caused by the silicone base of the HomePod itself. And Wirecutter also said that the discoloration may improve after several days if you take it off the wood surface. But to be honest, if you're trying to take care of your furniture, I'd say most people do. You know, even if it's like a cheap thing from IKEA, you still want to take care of it as much as you can. Just don't put it on there if you're at all thinking of buying a HomePod smart speaker. It doesn't seem to get on too well with wooden surfaces. Not the end of the world, surely, but still a little heads up for you all there. Second item regarding Apple is that Apple has said that they are working on a fix for a recently discovered bug that causes apps like Messages, WhatsApp, Safari, Facebook Messenger, and so on, basically anything that uses text, to crash on iOS 11.3, macOS 10.13.4, watchOS 4.3, and tvOS 11.3 when using the Indian language Telugu. And again, when you use this language, it does cause it to freeze up and become unresponsive, unfortunately. So basically what Apple have said is that this bug will be addressed in the upcoming iOS update, which is going to be released in the near future, and is also going to be coming to other operating systems as well. But basically it's coming soon. It's currently being beta tested, making sure it doesn't, you know, cause everything to explode and all that sort of thing. But they are on the case, and Apple have said that if you've received a message with this character, you'll need to delete that conversation in order to cease the instability issues. So, you know, again, not the end of the world, but if perhaps you make use of this particular language, just do keep this in mind. They are on the case and it will be out soon. So, as I said, we have Linux up for you next, or Ubuntu to be more exact. So this is going to be a little irritating and maybe quite upsetting to some people, but probably going to be a bit of a sort of shrug on the shoulders and a bit of from a lot of other people as well, as Canonical is planning on making changes to Ubuntu, which would mean rather that the distro would collect information or telemetry data on desktop PCs during installation and afterwards. So obviously some people are like, oh, that sounds like Windows talk. I don't know about that, guys, but the manager of Canonical, the desktop manager to be more exact, a fellow by the name of Will Cook, has said that basically they want to work on the elements that matter the most to users of Ubuntu, and it basically said that they need this data to help them decide on what to focus on the future. So you might say, okay, but what are they collecting exactly? Well, obviously the version of Ubuntu being installed, that's fairly reasonable. Basic spec of the PC, which obviously memory, desktop size, not desktop size, disk size, excuse me, GPU, CPU, all that sort of stuff, display resolution, manufacturer, along with details of third-party software, time taken for installation, that sort of thing. Now, that all sounds pretty reasonable to me. That would be met with a resounding meh if it was me. However, the slight sticking point for a lot of people is going to be the fact that it does gather data on location. However, it's not going to be IP address. So it's not going to be actual location exactly, it's going to be the location selected by the user during installation. So you can select some random country that you're not actually from, and that's the data they'll collect from you. Obviously it's going to all be anonymous and transferred via HTTPS for obvious reasons. And also they have said that a checkbox option is going to be available to the user on the installer, basically asking whether or not you want to send diagnostics information to help improve Ubuntu. It is going to be ticked by default, but obviously it literally takes maybe a second to go unclick and get rid of that. So personally, I don't think this is a huge deal. It's not even like they're asking for any really probing information. It's just going to rankle some people because obviously this is very much sort of in a Windows line of thinking. But the information they're asking for isn't particularly invasive, I would say, and obviously you can opt out if it really bothers you that much. So again, just a bit of an FYI, but personally I would say that doesn't sound too bad to me, but obviously I'm not a Linux user. I would probably explode if I tried to use it. I have seen Paul using it in the past and all this sort of stuff, and it's probably not as hard as it looks, but for somebody who's used Windows basically always, and apart from a brief spell on Mac during college when I was learning how to use Final Cut Pro, it's a bit like, I don't know. Anyway, let's move on to the Nintendo Switch. The lifespan of consoles has definitely been a bit of a theme as of late, as of course we have seen the lifespan of both the Xbox One and PS4 extended by the release of the Xbox One S and X and the PS4 Pro respectively. However, of course, we're now wondering how long those consoles are going to last, and obviously if this sort of midlife console improvement is going to be a thing from now on and that sort of stuff. And we have some comments to that effect from Shigeru Miyamoto, who said, quote, Nintendo also has a system in place whereby the software developers focus on these hardware features in their development efforts for the continuation of the Nintendo Switch business. Up until now, the hardware life cycle has trended at around 5 or 6 years, but it would be very interesting if we could prolong that life cycle, and I think you should be looking forward to that. So that doesn't necessarily mean that he's 100% confirming that there's going to be a Nintendo Switch Plus or 4K or whatever, but he is basically saying that this is something they're looking at. They definitely want to extend that life cycle, if possible. And I definitely don't think there's anything wrong with that per se. I mean, I do actually really like the Switch. I got one myself about a month or so ago now, and I'm actually really liking it as a console. We'll say Nintendo definitely proved me wrong with that console and how good the games have been for it. But obviously it is the least powerful console currently available on the market, and obviously we've seen that represented in in-game performance in some cases, and obviously that problem is only going to continue as we go forward. However, if they were to update it with a Nintendo Switch Plus in like 3 years or whatever, then obviously to help ease the issue. Obviously Nintendo just kind of do their own thing. This wouldn't be because it's the thing to do, because, you know, the Switch is very much a new idea, a new way of looking at consoles. This is something they have toyed with in the past with the Wii U, but I would say this is that vision realised much, 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 much better. But it isn't really like Nintendo to be like, oh, this is the trend, so we have to do it. Nintendo's kind of do Nintendo. They're both brilliant and odd in that way. So If they were to do this, I would think it would be very interesting, and I'd like to see their take on it. But this is by no means a confirmation, but definitely something they've got their eye on, and I don't think they're wrong to be doing that. Now, obviously, various people have said that the sort of mid-console lifecycle reboot, as it were, is not something that's going to be continuing. However, we might see that reflected to not be true in reality as we go on, especially as, say, the X has been doing really, really well and that sort of thing. But many people would argue, okay, the X could have easily been a new console with backwards compatibility. And I'll say, yeah, but it basically is, to be honest with you. So it's definitely an interesting discussion, and obviously I can't really predict the future, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it sticking around in the next whole console generation. But I think publishers and obviously developers are very well aware that there's only so far you can push this in terms of the amount of money that people have and that sort of thing. So I definitely think Nintendo are cognizant of that, as well as, of course, the price has definitely been a sticking point when it comes to the Nintendo Switch. So let's finish up this video from where voice goes entirely, as we move on to the FCC boss, Ajit Pai. It's safe to say that this man does not need any introduction, as he's extremely unpopular, as of course he was definitely a key part in getting net neutrality repealed in the United States. And obviously this has opened the door for various, shall we say, inconvenient things and potentially very damaging things. And obviously we got to see any real-world results quite yet. However, we have seen Sinclair Broadcasting Group attempting to acquire Tribune Media as part of a $3.9 billion merger. Now, this would basically mean that Sinclair would own more than 230 local stations across 72% of the US. So there's plenty of people going, can you not see how big of an issue this is? And what Ajit Pai helped accomplish has definitely helped that become a possibility. And now the New York Times have said or indicated that the FCC Inspector General has launched an investigation into whether Ajit Pai acted inappropriately as he rushed to dismantle net neutrality. The report says, quote, the top internal watchdog for the FCC opened an investigation into whether Mr. Pai and his aides had improperly pushed for the rule changes and whether they had timed them to benefit Sinclair. It was unclear the extent of the Inspector General's investigation or when it might conclude, but the inquiry puts a spotlight on Mr. Pai's decisions and whether there has been coordination with the company. It may also force him to answer questions that he so far avoided addressing in public. Now, what's also interesting is that a fellow by the name of Frank Pallone Jr., who is a Energy and Commerce ranking member, has been calling for this inquiry for a long time, and obviously he is pretty damn happy with this, as he said so himself on Twitter. He said, quote, for months I've been trying to get to the bottom of the allegation about Chairman Pai's relationship with Sinclair Broadcasting. I'm particularly concerned about the reports that Chairman Pai may have coordinated with Sinclair to time a series of commission actions to benefit the company. I am grateful to the FCC's Inspector General that he has decided to take up this important investigation. Obviously, this has also been pounced on by various consumer groups and people in general, but obviously what this investigation is looking at is this particular deal between Sinclair and Tribune Media itself. So basically, along everything else that's alongside this is a very thorny and extremely complicated issue that I'm not going to get into in this video for obvious reasons. However, they are looking at, like, among the other things that we also have to consider, did he work with Sinclair to push this through to basically mean that they could literally be allowed to do this? And obviously, Ajit would benefit from that himself financially as well. Obviously, if this investigation proves that to be a big old yes, then obviously that could be very, very interesting indeed, and obviously very bad for Ajit Pai himself, and potentially could mean a rediscussion of the whole net neutrality repeal thing. So obviously, we shouldn't really speculate because we, again, don't know exactly when this investigation is going to be conducted, or if it's already being conducted, or when it's going to be concluded. Obviously, don't know what the result is going to be. The result may be, hey, this is just a coincidence, or the result may be, no, he did collude with them, or something else entirely. But this is something that is happening, and it is something that could have far-reaching consequences for the net neutrality repeal, and obviously for Sinclair and Ajit Pai as well. So definitely want to keep an eye on for sure. This could have, again, a huge ripple effect on pretty much this whole discussion, so definitely going to be keeping an eye on this one. Anyway, that is me done for this video. Again, apologies for my slightly croaky voice. I can't really help it, unfortunately. Paul himself is quite busy preparing for an upcoming interview with F-Secure, so unfortunately it fell down to me. However, despite my ill-sounding voice, I hope you enjoyed the video anyway. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.